Sassy announcements. All right, hello y'all. That was Fugazi Waiting Room, one of the best like little bass drum, little punk like rhythm breakdowns of all time, in honor of Joe Lally, who is the bassist playing that wonderful line there. He was born in 1963. Song with a really good message, and I've actually band with a whole lot of good messages about trying hard and doing your best and never giving up and trying to make the world a better place from your own personal actions. So there you go, Fugazi. So missed yesterday, so a couple birthdays, one birthday from yesterday. We have Zoe Havel. And from today we have Paul Gutierrez. Okay, so today is December 3rd, and y'all know I like history for a lot of reasons, but one of the good things is trying to understand why stuff happens today and how it's impacted. And like, remember, history does not happen in a vacuum. Because things happen, they shape the way other events in the future and the present happen. So cause and effect. Remember, here's what happened, and try to go back and find out what kind of caused it, and like history changes because of that. So here we go, from some stuff from actually December 2nd throughout the time, and who have a lot of influence in the world. So here we go. So on December 2nd, 1823, James Monroe, who was the president during the presidential, he gave his presidential speech and State of the Union, that is, he declared what has become known as the Monroe Doctrine, which basically tells the European powers to stay on your side of the ocean over in Europe and leave the Americas alone. And we didn't have the power to enforce it, but it was in Great Britain's best interest to enforce it. So it really gave the United States some like opening to grow without being meddled with too much by like France and England and Spain and stuff like that, because I said it was in the British best interest to enforce this, and Great Britain had the biggest navy in the world. So fast forward a couple decades, 1845, President James K. Polk, during another presidential speech, declared what's basically the concept of manifest destiny. And Polk said that it is America's objective to aggressively spread west as quickly as possible. And of course, that is going to eventually lead to the war with Mexico. It's going to lead to the Mexican Cession, where the U.S. is going to basically look a lot like it does today, stretching from California, the Pacific Ocean, to the Atlantic Ocean. And so, again, maybe that doesn't happen like that. If we had been colonized by other people, but the Monroe Doctrine let us manifest destiny thing, which eventually, when we get all this land, that's going to be a huge trigger for the Civil War, because they're going to like, well, what do we do with this new land we got? Are they going to be free states? They're going to be slave states, and eventually that's going to erupt into the Civil War, which in 1865 is going to end up with Alabama ratifying the 13th Amendment, which is the amendment that ends slavery. So again, it probably would have, slavery would have ended at some point, but because of the way it happened was largely a part of because of the way the history went to cause this Civil War, and then the 13th Amendment was passed at the end of the war. Okay, well then the Civil War is of course gonna America stays united and is going to become a world power. because of it, instead of a bunch of small, we have a very good chance that if we had not stayed together, what is the United States now might have been several small little countries because they're probably been fighting and stuff like that. So we might not have been in a place when in 1917 the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk passed, when basically the Soviet Union, or what becomes the Soviet Union, Russia, is going to make a treaty with Germany basically Russia was going through its own revolution, and so they dropped out of World War I, which of course means Germany is no longer having to fight on two fronts, like against the Russians and against the West, and they're going to then be able to go put all their firepower to the West, which might have ended up win a German victory if America had not been a strong one country to come in and kind of tip the scale of balance in the side of the Allies in the war. So there you go. So the Allied powers won. And it probably would not have happened if America had fallen into a bunch of small little states, which wouldn't happen if the Civil War had not been won. So at any rate, then we go into, on December 2nd, 1942, the Manhattan Project, which was going to develop the first nuclear bomb. On this day, December 2nd, the first self-sustaining nuclear chain reaction took place. Again, nuclear power would have come along at some point, but because of World War II, it came about a lot quicker because there was a need for it. And again, if Germany had won World War I, there probably would not have been a World War II. Probably would not have happened. It was the way Germany lost in World War I and really the Peace Treaty of Versailles afterward that really kind of led to World War II happening. So again, Germany might have won the war if the United States had to come back, which they hadn't won the Civil War. So all these things kind of trigger. And then, of course, because of the way World War II ended, it leads to the Cold War. So that's going to lead to, in 1956, the Cuban Revolution is going to basically be started, which is going to turn to a big Cold War thing, and leads to this day when literally in the news this morning, Cuba was complaining, saying, because there were some protests in the streets of Havana, and Cuba is saying that it's not real protests, it's like fake news, and that CIA is like causing this happen. So we've been at odds with Cuba ever since this. But again, maybe the Cold War and our fallout with Cuba never happens if we don't have the Cold War, which might have never happened if World War II ended the way it did. So anyway, you could play this game on and on and on. Just it's interesting to kind of put stuff together, but it also is really useful to understanding like if you had not known the history of the Cold War, you wouldn't be able to quite understand as well what it means that Cuba is saying this stuff about the protests in its own country and blaming it on us. There's a backstory there. And remember, to understand what happens in the future or in the present is good to know the backstory. It gives you some perspective. At any rate, y'all see how my brain works, right? So we're going to close on the four-way test. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Our virtue this month is responsibility. How are you being responsible, Crockett? Are you setting your goals? You doing what you need to? You listening to your parents and, helping your family out with chores, taking care of your schoolwork, getting up on time, going to the Zoom meetings when you need to? I know you are. Remember, the more you work, the more you prepare, and the better you set yourself up for a more successful and easy future. So be responsible, work hard out there, guys. All right, no, I'm missing you. See y'all later.